Happy Halloween to everybody. Thanks for clicking on to the Thursday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. We have a rather quiet Halloween to speak about. Lots of cloud cover trapped underneath a fairly strong area of high pressure, but we do have windy conditions on the northern flank of the high. We've got a bit of a squeeze in the isobars, indicating that we've got strong winds counteracting low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south. And it is generally a rather monotonous end to the month of October, and that will continue into the month of November. Before we continue with the video, if you're enjoying the content here on the channel, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Also, leave a comment. Feel free to do so. It'd be good to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, a warm welcome to you. We're going to be talking more and more about the winter forecast and putting together the final ideas as we move into the month of November. The winter forecast will be released at the back half of this month, so stay tuned for that. Coming up this weekend, going to have the Tropical Outlook on Saturday, and then on Sunday, as always, at 4 p.m, the live stream, we will be talking about all things global weather. But yeah, things are fairly quiet at the moment with high pressure largely dominating the pattern. It is a drier than average pattern overall. Doesn't mean that we are not seeing rain at all. We're seeing some in the far north. We're seeing some in other areas as well. But generally speaking, it is a largely quiet pattern. So therefore, let's look at what is going on within the stratosphere. And this is an interesting one here. The GFS, this is of the GFS model, indicating that by the time, yes, it's 10 days away or thereabouts, but by next Saturday, the model is indicating that the core of the stratospheric polar vortex drops to minus 85 Celsius. So at the bottom left-hand corner, that is the minimum temperature projected by the model as of next Saturday, the 9th of November. So the polar vortex continues to strengthen, and therefore we would expect the stratospheric wind circling around to therefore strengthen as well. And if we look at the Greenland, interestingly enough, the temperature at the time of recording is minus 49 Celsius. Now it's dropped to minus 50 during the early portions of yesterday. And the maximum minus 45, minus 50 was the minimum, wind chill minus 71. What's significant about this minus 50, by the way, is it's dropped to that level a couple of times now. That's the coldest temperature recorded at the surface anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere this autumn so far. And it's pretty much an indicator when you coincide with the strengthening of the polar vortex. You would expect to see Greenland turning particularly cold, and also within the Arctic region itself, a lot of the cold air is bundled within the higher latitudes within the Arctic, where we've got an absence of solar energy now, and therefore this is a sense where we are going to build a cold reservoir within the Arctic region with a strong polar vortex. So in some respects, it's not the end of the world that we're seeing a powerful, particularly strong stratospheric polar vortex at this moment in time. You want to see the cold reservoir build within the high latitudes. The question mark is this a harbinger of what's to come? In other words, are we going to continue to see this strong stratospheric polar vortex as we go into the winter season? If we do, coincide with a West QBO, take aside the La Nina West QBO combination in terms of the potential for a major sudden stratospheric warming later down the road. There is obviously still models that indicate a weaker than average polar vortex into the heart of winter, but the La Nina is kind of struggling at the moment. We're borderline between neutral and weak La Nina territory. The SOI, which is a measure of atmospheric reflection between those cold waters compared to average within the ocean surface and the atmosphere, are not coupled. We're seeing the SOI going from positive to negative to positive. So therefore, it's indicating that the atmosphere is not locking on to those cooling central and east Pacific water temperatures. So therefore, there is quite a bit of complexity as we move into the latter half of this autumn and the winter season. But it's going to be interesting. It really is going to be interesting to see where we go as we step through the month of November. What's interesting is the fact that the ECMWF extended indicates that the next 30 days is going to see low heights up over Greenland, over North America, and a very powerful, persistent block that we've got at the moment, but it's expected in the means over the next 30 days to remain anchored over the UK and Ireland here. So therefore, that would certainly be drier than average and likely warmer than average for the UK, Ireland, and Western Europe if this happens to play off. Now, let's look at the upper heights for the same 30-day period, and you can see what it's indicating here. So we've got neutral heights over Greenland. We've got a negative just to the east of North America, but we've got a positive. This is a very, very positive Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation November, if this holds true. And you can see the region over the eastern and northern half of North America, over the North Pacific, and especially so over the UK and Ireland. The highest heights anywhere on the planet is bang slap over the UK and Ireland if the ECM is remotely correct. So if we look at Europe specifically for the 30-day upcoming period, you don't get much of a stronger, higher pressure than that. That's for sure. If this was June, July, or August, we would be talking about the hot, dry conditions. That is for sure. Looking at rainfall for the next 30 days, no surprise, we have got abnormally dry conditions. So what's interesting about this is we had the record wet September for England and Wales. This could be potentially on the cards, a record dry November. So you don't get much more contrasting than that. And then if we look at the temperature anomalies here for the same period, this is how it's looking, warmer than average. And I think really, this Halloween, it's cloudy, it's misty, it's murky, and it looks as if even all the way out to Guy Fawkes night next week, it could be a very similar story. In fact, underneath that high pressure, mist, murk, clear, temperatures drop off, probably close to, if not slightly below freezing. But where the mist and murk lingers with the combination of fireworks going off, we could have some real significant fog issues next week when you factor in both what's going on, but also the type of weather that we're seeing as well. Let's look at the 7-day increments here, because this is what's really quite striking about all this, is the fact that we've got this MJO at the moment rotating into a very pronounced phase. Now remember, we're now starting to move into phases 7. So that's the enhanced convection over the West Pacific. Now, we would expect to see, I know it's not written in stone, that when you've got a phase 7, 8, and 1 of the MJO, that you're guaranteed a negative Arctic oscillation, North Atlantic oscillation pattern, a colder than average pattern, Eastern North America, Western Europe. But generally speaking, with a pronounced phase 7, 8, and 1 of the MJO over the next week to 10 days here, what is very striking is the fact that we've got this persistent block of high pressure stuck over the UK and Ireland, yet we are seeing the amplification of the pattern extending from Pacific into North America, but then there's a refusal for this budging of the high over the UK and Ireland. I'm still going to say this, that I think we are still going to see that block potentially shift up towards either Scandinavia or west-northwest, or retrograding up towards Greenland. So yeah, this is the drum that I'm going to continue beating until it is, it's plain to see that we're not going to see the changes taking place. Now, let's go back to the chart here and see. So this is the upcoming 7 days. This is off the ECM extended, and you can see here firmly warmer than average. Now, as we play through this loop, we're cooling things down, particularly so across southeastern Europe. It looks as if it turns pretty cold actually across the Balkans into Greece, Turkey, up into the Black Sea region, the East Black Sea, Georgia, Uzbekistan. It could turn particularly cold. But notice here the 7 to 14 day is particularly mild across the UK and Ireland and Northern Europe, Western Europe as a whole, which is quite interesting to see. Then we play through this loop. Notice here that the warmth eases and we actually replace it with something a little bit cooler towards the final half of November. Continuing to play through this, you can see that the models indicate something a little bit more seasonable, if not slightly below average. Let's have a look at the GFS Ensemble and see the extended here. So let's go back to the here and now. You can see here warmer than average, play through into the 7 to 14 day. And again, very similar to the ECM, warm west and cold east and southeast. Continue to play through. You can see that again, like ECM, it's easing the warm signal over Western Europe and it's actually turning slightly below average. This is the period Tuesday the 12th through Tuesday the 19th of November here. Now this would make sense based on this, the MJO rotating through phases 7 and 8. So yeah, I'm not going to throw in the towel. Like I said in the video there back, what was it, 2 days ago, that I'm not throwing this towel in just yet. I do think we are going to see a change taking place based on the amplification of the pattern, the deepening of the trough ridge pattern across the northern hemisphere, and also the transfer of warmth out of the mid latitudes up towards the Arctic region as well. I still think that the modelling is having a little bit of a difficulty distributing or redistributing the ridge trough pattern over the hemisphere. This is the CAN-SIPS model, by the way, for the month of this is October, and then looking at the month of November, you can see that it's got basically higher pressure compared to average right the way across the entire planet. But that being said, you notice here that we've got a ridge over the North Pacific and also a ridge over the North Atlantic here. What you would expect would be more troughiness over Eastern North America and Western Europe if you've got a stronger block in between the North Atlantic, Greenland, and up into the Arctic region. Now, in the near term, the Arctic oscillation is expected to go towards neutral and then go actually positive, which is quite interesting. Looking at the NAO, this is how it's looking. So you can see here this kind of trend back towards neutral as we move through the first half of November. I want to show you the GFS model here real quick in terms of the 850. So in fact, let's play quickly through the overview chart. So we've got a cold front here moving through. We've got a little bit of a slip to the southwest of the high. We've got a cold front moving through. We've got something a little bit colder coming into the far north of the UK. But generally, that cold front is not going to drill all the way south over the UK. It's going to get deflected to the east of the British Isles here. That high is going to kind of stop the cold air from dropping south over the UK. It's going to actually drop to the east of the British Isles. So we are going to turn colder, Scandinavia into central and eastern areas of Europe here, remaining mild and fairly settled across UK and Ireland here. Underneath that area of high pressure, we've basically got the same regime. This is Saturday the 2nd of November. And then as we play into the early portions of next week, what's going to happen is that high is going to shift to the east. We're going to see more of a kind of southeasterly airflow moving in underneath that high and into the southern half of the UK. What that's going to do is it's going to start to erode the cloud that's stuck underneath the high, and we're going to get a little bit of a drier air moving in on the underneath the area of high pressure. It's going to cycle air essentially originating to the north over Scandinavia, colder, drier Arctic air. It's going to cycle around that high underneath and into the southern UK, and it's going to generally cool things down slightly, but more importantly, it's going to allow the atmosphere to become a little bit cleaned out, and therefore we should start to see something a little bit clearer and brighter as we move through the second half of the weekend. Then as we move into the early portions of next week, that high still south and southeast. We've got a bit of a southeasterly flow. And remember, with the cold air dropping into Eastern Europe, it's not actually going to be a particularly warm southeasterly flow. It's actually going to cycle some of that colder air that's getting drawn in on the north side of the system. It's going to cycle around it and then move up into the UK and Ireland from a southeasterly direction. So not a particularly warm southeasterly flow. Then you notice here that we remain stuck underneath a pretty strong 1036 millibar high at the surface. But notice we're starting to see changes taking place over the Atlantic. And this could be the ripple effect to what's going on within the MJO and the effects on the jet and the ridge troughs over the North Pacific extending into North America. I think we're going to get some sort of a budge of this high pressure as we move towards the middle and second half of the month. But look at this here, all the way out to Tuesday the 12th, we've still got high pressure bang slap over the UK and Ireland. Let's look at the 850s here and see what it's indicating. So that high pressure is shielding us from any Arctic air trying to come south. Notice we get a glancing blow. It drops over Scandinavia into central and eastern areas of Europe here, still stuck in the mild air, while we've got these punches of cold air dropping into the southeast of Europe here. Then as we play through the loop, we've got this kind of push of something really quite mild actually moving in. Even temperatures at as warm as 15 Celsius at 850. So this could be near record warm 850 temperatures if this happened to be true by the time we reach Thursday of next week here, the 7th of November. All the while, the temperatures are going to continue cooling over Greenland here as we have the cold pool, intensifying over Greenland at this point in time. So yeah, it's quite a complex but yet very interesting pattern at the moment. I'm going to stick by my ideas that we are likely to have a mild first half to November, drier than average, high pressure dominated. But what happens as we move into the second half of November and we see the lag effect of what's going on with the MJO? Remember, there is usually a 10-day lag between where it is located, whether it's in phase 7, 8, or 1. You generally tend to find that there's a rule that you add 10 days after that rotation into that particular phase that you see the response to the atmosphere and the overall pattern here. So yeah, let's continue to monitor this going forward. But the polar vortex is going to continue to strengthen at 10 millibars in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Let's go very, very quickly onto the ECMWF 10 millibar levels here in terms of the mean zonal wind here. So just bear with me a second here, and I'll get hopefully the right chart. Just bear with a second. So this is how it's looking. So we're going very strong. This is the zonal mean winds at 10 HPA, remember. So you've got the just above the average line at the moment here, Wednesday, as of Wednesday the 30th of October. It goes to near record strong levels. Then it drops below average. And again, as I've harped on about, is this the response to the building of higher pressure and warmer air up into the Arctic region in the response to the Arctic Oscillation, North Atlantic Oscillation, potentially, in my opinion, going to go negative? Then as you build the heights within a typically shallow Arctic troposphere, when you build pressure within the troposphere, that then creates a resistance. It builds mountains up into the lower stratosphere, then creates drag. So therefore, the mean zonal winds then slow down due to the frictional effects of what's going on within the troposphere. And then what we are going to see is we're going to see it rebound again and go pretty strong into the second half of November and on into possibly early December as well. Now, if we get a strong PV into the early portions of December, I would probably say that you're looking towards more of a zonal and mild December if that happens to hold true. My fear is that the MJO rotates into the phases of 2, 3, 4, and 5 during the latter half of November into the early portions of December. And the combination of warm MJO phases and a strong polar vortex could end up making for a rather mild December overall. But yeah, plenty going on at the moment here. Like and subscribe as always, And I'll see you next time with more. Happy Halloween and stay safe. Bye bye.